everyone for week 3 of the Practical R Workflow workshop. Let's see. So usual, I posted the website into the chat, and while I'm talking, go ahead and put questions in the chat, and I'll stop periodically and answer those questions. So on the website here for the workshop, I am adding the links to the video each week. So you can see we've got week 1 and week 2 here. And the sessions are standalone, basically. So you don't need to have gone to or watched the previous weeks. The one exception to that is weeks 4 and 5, where I'm going to show you how to make an R package and talk about why you'd want to do that. And for that one, it will be very useful to have been in both week 4 and week 5. It won't be essential for week 5 because I'm going to be talking about documenting your R packages. So if you already know how to do an R package, but you don't know how to do R oxygen to do documentation, you'll be fine. But if you obviously never developed an R package, then week 5 would not make a whole lot of sense. All righty, so let's see here. Okay, great. Okay, so this week, I'm going to change gears a bit, and I'm going to talk about our Markdown. So here's the tab here. And kind of focus, well, I'm going to do a kind of a review of our Markdown for those who haven't seen it. And then I'm going to show you some examples of things that you might not know that you can do with our Markdown. And then show you some examples of scientific reports that I've made and how what my code looks like for making tables for reports. Okay, so first thing, if you go to this tab on the website, if you don't have the link to the website, just put that in the chat. I'll paste it again. I pasted it there, but I think not. I think if you joined after I pasted the link in, you won't be able to see it. Okay, so on this page, I have information about the setup. And the key thing to know is that if you want to do PDFs, then you're going to need a LaTeX installation on your machine. That used to be really hard, drive you crazy, but it's gotten a lot easier because now there's this package called TinyText, and you can just run those 2 lines of code, and it will install TinyText on your laptop. And it's smaller, the name, TinyText, and so that's really nice. Makes it much, much easier. So you don't have to like suffer through that part of the installation. One thing I will say about TinyText that's going to be surprising the first time that you run the first time you try to create a PDF is that it's going to look like it's not working. And what is going on in the background is that TinyText is installing all the LaTeX packages that it needs. And that takes a lot longer than you would think. It's not like installing an R package. It's just really long process. Like long, like it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's crazy long. So you're going to see when I do it, things are going to pop up pretty fast. but when the first time you do it, it's not going to be that fast. The second time it will, but the first time it won't. So let me just show you how you can build an R Markdown document, or show you an R Markdown document in RStudio, show you how that kind of interact with that in RStudio, and then I'll go and kind of go into the structure of our Markdown. All right, so I'm just going to go to RStudio here. Got a lot of things open. Okay. All right, so I just basically have I have a project open. You can see up here the project that's open. You always want to look in the corner up here to see where you're at. So I have this project open, but you can see it doesn't have much info. It's basically a blank project. So that's what I'm going to use to just show you how this works. So in RStudio, you can go to File, New File, R Markdown, and Document, and it's just going to open up a template for you. So I click OK, and you can see it opens up the template. I'm going to go and show you what these various things are, but first let me just kind of show you how this works. So it opened up this template document, and then RStudio has this thing that says knit, and if I click that, it wants me to save it. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. All right, so you can see what it did. It processed that document and created this HTML. So I just wanted to show you that first, that it's like really easy to process these documents in RStudio. The platform is really nice for that. So let's go back and let me just show you kind of the structure of an R Markdown document. In the top here is something called the YAML. I don't actually know how it's said. It's YAML, and it's between these 3 marks here and these 3 marks here. And the information up here is going to tell the processing program that's in the background how to process your document. And in this case, it's very simple. It just simple. In this example, we're not giving it a lot of information. We're just giving it the absolute basic, which is the title, and then what kind of output we want. In this case, HTML. Next thing that you see is, I'm going to skip this setup here. We'll come back to that. Next thing you'll see are these things like these hash marks here. These are headings, and then you have text. You can have links in there. Formatting is Markdown, which is pretty simple formatting. You may have already been using this for a lot of websites. We'll use this like if you're commenting on the website, or like Stack Overflow or something. So then the thing that's different about our Markdown versus Markdown is that you have the R. You can embed R code into this document. So, for example, here, these tick marks here, tick, 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 these 3, that means code. And in the RStudio platform, you will see when you have this tick, 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 and then you have these little brackets here, This is telling it that it's R, so it's this exactly how it's written is important. We don't need the cars there. That's just going to give it a label like that. That's important because that's going to say it's R code. And when you see that in RStudio, you're going to have this nice little button over here, and you can run that and see what happens. So run that, and now it's showing me the code. The part after the R is just labeled for that code chunk. And that comes up useful sometimes looking at the output. It often comes up useful. All right. And conversely, if I left that off, what it would do, it would format that as code. And it's not going to run it. It's just now it's just a formatted statement. I need to actually put this and put R there. And now you see this little arrow shows up because it told it, hey, this is R code. Do something with that. All right. And then you can embed plots, and they just kind of show up automatically if you have a plot command here. So if I run that there, that plot's going to show. All right. So that's a basic overview of the structure. I want to show you one more thing in this RStudio platform that's nice, is if I click the knit, and I can knit to something else. So I showed you HTML. That was the first thing I ran. I could also knit to a Word document. So, well, there it is. You can see it's created this Word document for me. It has the data, and it has all the plots in there, so it's very nice. Close plots. Go back here, and now you're going to see these files that it's created that they've shown up here. And then I'll illustrate knitting to a PDF. There we go. So it works pretty seamless. Like I said with the PDF, just be aware the first time you run it, after you install TinyText, it's not going to pop up just like that because it's got to install a lot of packages the first time. I was a little startled, especially when I was running it on this computer, which I don't normally do PDFs on the laptop I'm using right now. So I was a little, oh my God, why is it taking 15 minutes? And I had to remember, all right, all the packages. So someone asked, is all the formatting pre-installed as part of the knit package? First off, yes, it's pre-installed. So I'm just, like I said, I just opened a blank, project in RStudio, and I just used their template. So everything I'm showing you is just like the default template. And is the style customizable? Everything is customizable. Yes, definitely. You can do, yeah, it's all customizable, and it's really simple. If you're like making HTMLs, you can pass in your own style .css and customize all that. And then we're going to see examples in the YAML, that stuff at the top. Let's do this. Okay. So every time I did a new type of document, it added some info here to the output. But so this is really simple. There's all kinds of things you can put in here. These automatic table of contents, code foldings, all kinds of examples. I'm going to show you some of that, and then I'm going to give you links to lots more info. Okay. So what is the difference between R Markdown and R Notebook? Maybe somebody else on the chat knows the answer to that. I do not. I don't use the R Notebook feature. So if you know the answer, jump in there to the chat and help out Tony. Okay, so let's go back here. And so that was your super fast overview. Now, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you a few more specific examples, still keeping it really simple, and just sort of get you on your feet there. And then I'm going to jump out and show you some more complex things that I do and you can do with our Markdown. So if you go to this link here, it's going to go to a GitHub repository where I have a bunch of template. That is not where that is going. Is that there? Yes, that is where that's going. So, okay, that is going to go to a repository with a bunch of templates that you can take a look at. So it's going to take you here to this repository, and so I put in some examples like the basic thing. I just showed you an example of the basic, but I have some other things here that we're going to look at. So let's go over here to, okay, there we go. So you can see I have this project open. I gave you instructions if you want to download that repository. You don't have to clone it like we did in the previous 2 weeks. We were talking a lot about cloning repositories. For those of you who didn't do that, don't want to do that, you can also download repositories as a zip file and get all those things. All right, so let's start off with, let's see, what do I have here? Okay, so what I show here is just some basic things that we often want to do with figures. And we often want to have figure captions. And what you can do is you can pass in figure caption equals yes, and then it's going to add your figure captions. Nice thing about the figure captions also is they will be put into the alt text. And if you're putting anything up publicly in your NOAA employee, you need to have alt text on your figures. So that caption feature will do that for you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about accessibility a little later. Okay, so let's go ahead and knit this to HTML. So looks. Okay. This is just using the R Markdown HTML viewer. It'll look a little different in a browser, so I'll always make sure to click here, open in a browser, and see how it looks. But for now, we can just look at this. And what are you doing? Yeah. So what I want to show you here is the figure caption. Well, I guess first I'll just kind of scroll you through, see how this looks. See, you know, it's nice. You put these complex figures in there. And let's go back to our Markdown, which is over here. And now I'm going to show you a few really common things that extra things we'll put into the code for the R. So remember I told you here in the squiggly part, this is telling it that it's R code. The next thing here is the label of that the code. And then you're going to have a comma and then you have these extra variables. So in this one, it says echo equals false. And what that is saying is don't show the code. So if you're writing something and you just want the figure or the output, you'll say echo equals false and then not have the code there. You can also pass in things that specify like the size of the figure, the height and the width, and whether you want it to be aligned in the center. With that kind of control. And then, as I mentioned, you can put in the captions. So at the top, I had big captions equals yes. And then to sort of activate that, you put in this thing here, big cap. And then you get whatever the caption is. And now that caption is going to show up on that figure. And then, like I said, that caption is also going to appear in the alt text. I see somebody has answered the question about notebooks. I'll just comment there. It's kind of my sort of thing too with the notebooks. I don't really see the advantage of them, so I never use them. But maybe other people like them. All right, so that's basic figure. And let's go and let me show you that, because that's a really nice feature of our Markdown also. Like if you write things that have math in them, it just makes it really super easy, and you don't have to learn a new math syntax if you already know LaTeX. A lot of people don't know LaTeX, but there's been a trend in the last, like 3 years that people have switched to the LaTeX formatting on like in Markdown, and how you like interact and say Stack Overflow or something, because so many people already know LaTeX. And this has just been, it's been really nice. And also, it also means that more and more people learn that syntax, and so we'll all start using this common syntax. We don't have to learn this sort of separate Markdown syntax. So if you open up the math RMD that I put there, it will show you examples, and it shows you the basic formatting. And let me first just submit this so you can see what it looks like. Okay. Great. And so there we go. This is an example of math. Look at that. It's beautiful in HTML. This is fantastic. If you have ever tried to do a HTML document in with math like 3-4 years ago, you would know, like, to have it beautiful just show up is just amazing. It used to just be much suffering, and there's no suffering anymore, because there's this JavaScript package that's operating in the math background called MathJax, and now we have beautiful math in HTML. And also, if we go, let's do this in Word. Math in Word is also much suffering. There we go. Let's see what I can I didn't try this out with Word, but oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, just taking its time. You can see it's also showing up in Word. And I didn't have to like mess around with the equation editor. It's just being slow here, but the math is there. You can see it does it in text. Oh, it's just so beautiful. And then we'll see if it'll do it in PDF also. It would normally, but it's possible that, yeah, okay. Oh, well, it didn't. I was pausing here because I said, remember I said TinyTech has to do packages. I wasn't positive that it was not going to have to load something. But you can see here it's made this beautiful PDF with this complex math. Great. So if you need to do math, look at the Math RMD, and you're going to see some examples, how to get you started. When you first start with LaTeX, it's a little painful, but you'll quickly learn it. Just put some effort there. All right, great. So let me see what questions we have here. Let's see. Can you tell it to just print? Tell it to print just to an R plot window so you can tweak the size and everything, or copy yourself before printing to a document? Yes, you can tell it to save all your images to whatever format you like and for whatever DPI you like. I mentioned the latter because when we are submitting figures for submission to reports or to journals, you have to specify a certain DPI, and you can control that and print that. It'll print out all those files for you, all those images for you as image files, and you can tell it where to save those. Can you tell it to print just to an R window so you can tweak the size and everything, or copy yourself somewhere before printing to a document? So I'm not sure exactly what the question is there, but I will say that if I go here to figures, so the thing that I will use is I will use this feature, this green button, and then look how it is down below. So either that, or I'm going to let's see, so I'm going to go here like so. I've just selected those lines, and if I click up here at Run and I run selected lines, go over to the console, you'll see they're here. They're now in the console. And hopefully that showed up in plots. Did that show up in plots? This is kind of a feature I've run into a lot, where like I run the code and it shows up on the console, which is nice, but it didn't show up in the plot over on the right. So I will run those lines, and then I may have to copy and paste back into my console to get it to show up over here. There might be a better way to do that. Surely there's a better way. I have not personally figured it out. I'm usually copying and pasting it into my console. Either that, or I'm just looking at the figure by using that green button here. Okay. Can you merge our Markdown knitted to Word with separate Word documents? For example, write equations in our Markdown rest in Word. I don't know if you can do that. Yeah, someone posted some nice links about customizing plots. Kind of following up on that, Google is fantastic. You'll find, lots of information where, Stack Overflow is especially good. People post solutions to all kinds of things. Okay, great. All right. Okay, so let me go through a few more examples of some other things that are cool. So in the extras, I show you the example of code folding and table of contents. So let's go ahead and knit that. See that. So now what you see is it showed up on the left, the table of contents. And I can specify how I want that to show up. Like in this case, I just have these main headings showing up, but I could have shown all the subheadings too if I wanted. And then code folding. So what that does is it creates this little button here, and I can click that, and that shows up, or I can hide that. So that's kind of nice, especially if you're creating an online document with a lot of code and you don't want code to just fill up the whole page. All righty. Okay, so close that. And next I'm going to show you how to combine our Markdown files. So now we're going to move into a little more practical stuff for writing your own reports. Okay, so now I'm going to show you examples of this later on, but first I just want to show you how you combine our Markdown files. So imagine you're writing something that is kind of complex. You've got a whole lot of text, and then you've got your figures, and you've got your tables, and you've got your appendices, and maintaining that all in one big Markdown file will just get to be a real mess. So I recommend against doing that. And here's an example of just a template of how you combine things. So here, I've got my introduction, I've got some text, and I've got some code. And then I'm going to have the tables at the bottom of this document. So I've got my tables. And what you do is you just say child equals tables.rmd, and it's going to get that tables RMD file and stick it there. And then your figures, it's going to stick them there. So that's how you can keep things really organized. And you don't have to have all your figures. I could do, a whole bunch of children. So child, big 1, big 2, big 3, whatever. And then when we knit this, you'll see it's going to combine all those. I'm knitting just to HTML. It's going to work exactly the same if you knit to Word or knit to PDF. And so you can see here, it's inserted the tables, and then it's inserted all those figures. So it just took those other Markdown files and inserted them. It's a really important feature to know about when you're working on more complex Markdown documents. Okay, so I want to show you some examples of some more realistic, complex Markdown files from my own work, and talk about some of the advantages of using an Markdown file. And I'm going to show you do that using a specific example. All right, so this is a analysis. It was a report, and it was a part of the listing decision for Puget Sound rockfish back in, I think this is 2015. And this this report was all done in our Markdown. And like this, these table of contents, this is all automatically generated. I showed you the table of contents for HTML. This is what it would look like if I did it for a PDF. It shows up like this, all automatically generated. I'm not having to do this. I'm trying to maintain that and be really hard. And this particular project, we have lots and lots of data files. And as you all know, that what's often happening, as what's happening all the time, is you get updates to your data files. and then you have to rerun everything. And those data files might show up or the data from those data files show up in figures, it's showing up in the text, your confidence intervals for things. And the amount of work to update your report when that data is changing like that is extremely time consuming. And also it's just like impossible to not have errors crop up all over. So if you write this in an R Markdown file and you don't have any hard-coded data anywhere, it's dynamically creating the tables for the data, and it's dynamically putting the results of things like confidence intervals into the text. Then when data is changed, you just hit knit, just like I did, and it recreates the whole report. So I would get an update for the data, and then I would hit knit, and in 5 minutes, okay, it's more like 15 minutes, because I would scan through, make sure there wasn't anything wonky that showed up when I got the new data. I could hand a brand new report back to them. So the work to set up this R Markdown file, sure, that was time consuming, but then it saved me tons and tons of time as the data kept being updated. So this particular report it's like 50 pages, and the big part of it was a big part of it were these data tables. We had to show the exact data that were being used in our analysis. So all these tables are dynamically generated. What that means is I'm reading in a CSV file or an Excel file that I got. You can read in either one. I tend to work with CSV. It's a lot faster, but if you want to work with Excel, that's fine. Anyhow, it reads that data in and then processes that, and then produce this table. Okay. So all these tables, all these plots, they're all dynamically produced. So it's always using the latest data. And then there's some other elements of this, like these things here. These were images, and it's very easy to insert images into our Markdown. All right, so that's a real-world example of using our Markdown to generate reports. You can see it looks great. It's very professional. I could have created it in Word also. The tables, in my experience, don't look anywhere near as nice in Word, so I tend to not use that if I can avoid it. But because I work with people who need Word things, I also work with, knit to Word documents all the time also. Okay, so, and then wanted to also show you an example of a paper. So this is a PDF of a paper, and again, this is all generated from an R Markdown document. In this case, it's mainly text, but there are some numbers that are going to show up mainly in the results here that would come from the data processing, and then the figures. Let's see, figure legends. Okay. All this stuff like the figure numbering, that's coming in dynamically too. And then the appendices that would be attached to it, all these tables are created dynamically. So if I need to change the data, or I decide I'm going to change how I do things, I'm not going in and manually changing these numbers. This is all being produced from the R code. Again, more setup time for sure, but the reproducibility is really high, and then the amount of time it saves you later is just incredible. Okay, so let me show you an example of how you can create tables in RStudio, and how you can create tables that look like this. So let's see, any questions? I'm going to pause here. Looks like some more things about. Okay, don't. Looks like the questions have been answered by others. That's great. Everyone keep doing that. Okay. Let's see. And Paul says, can you make your manuscript example available? Yes, I can make that available. I will put that in when I update the website. Look at that on our Markdown tab. I'll put that there so you can. I'll put a link to a repository that you can look at. Oh, okay. So that's a good question here. Somebody asked about interfacing with programs like Endnote for referencing papers. Yeah, so actually, let me talk about that right now. Okay, I've got 20 more minutes. So when I post the example of the paper, you will see how it links with BibTeX to produce all of this. And so all these references, let's see here if I have this sardine paper. Okay, so this is this sardine paper. This one's kind of complex. The one that I'll post will be a little bit simpler. This had tons of tables and appendices and but let me show you just on this our Markdown file. Okay, so this is our Markdown file for the main paper, and you can see. Let's see where is it? Title. This is stuff that is telling it how to format it because I'm doing it in Latex. And then you just see here this thing, bibliography. Although I'm showing you the PDF, actually, when I work with my co-authors, they all work in Word. So I personally read my paper and work on my paper in PDF. But whenever I was interacting with my co-authors, I would save this as a Word file. And what you just saw with all those tables and all those references, that shows up just as fine in Word, same thing. They would edit track changes in Word, and then I would put those, that was kind of hard. I did have to like manually put that into our Markdown file. But I was the lead author, so it wasn't really that bad. But anyhow, so this is how you're doing the bibliography, and then you just include this bib file. And then when you look at our Markdown file, you'll see how you do references. It's just a little command that you use. And I do keep all my references in Endnote, just as I like Endnote. And then you can export to bib. So that's what I do. I keep things in Endnote, and then when I add things, I just export them to the bib file that I need. Okay, great. Okay, so let's move on here. I want to show you tables because you need to, if you're doing this for papers or for big reports, you need to move beyond the sort of default table making features. Okay, so let's go to tables here. I'm going to start with the basic tables, and then I'm going to open up this table extra so you can see how to make them look nicer. Okay, so there are a few different ways you can make tables. The default for the knitter package is this function called table. And let's see. Just run this so you can see how they look. Okay, So this is cable. This is like the default. And you can see it kind of does this wide screen here. There's a number of features that I can change. I can change a lot about the look of this. The Cable Extra package is really nice. It's really easy to do fancy things. You just search on the Cable Extra package. So this is, oh, I didn't use any really nice styling. Oh, you can do all kinds of things in Cable Extra, like alternating colors and, you know, all kinds of things. And here I didn't use one of those more interesting examples. Oh, I guess I did here. I just lower down. I show you an example how you can put like have it flow around the text, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's just like a really brief example of making tables. And like I said, just search on Cable Extra, you see, and to do like examples, you see lots of great examples. So the problem is this doesn't look that great in Word is one thing, and it's definitely not going to look great in a PDF. So let's take a look at this in a PDF and see what I mean. Okay. No, okay, that doesn't look okay. Well, I take that back. It looks great in a PDF. Yeah, okay, looks fine in PDF. Let's see how it looks in Word. Things have gotten better, I guess. And this is the Word example. So, okay. And this is just with the cable. Yeah, cable, and then you can see what happens with Cable Extra. So it doesn't know what to do. I think they'll change that eventually, but they haven't yet. So if you're working with Word, you're stuck with just cable, and your options for working with that are more limited, much more limited. So let me show you how to do the table, show you this Table Extra here. And I'm just going to show you how the commands that you're going to use to do a LaTeX with your tables. And in those simple examples that I just showed you, you might think, well, that looks great. That's fine. Why don't I just use that? And the reason is that when you start to try to make more complex tables, like what I showed you in those papers, you quickly run into the limitations of Cable and Cable Extra, is my experience. So typically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the Xtable package if I'm making something in LaTeX. And there I have a lot more control of all the parameters that are passed to the LaTeX, and I can create those more complex tables that you saw in the papers. So this is how I'm going to be creating tables for myself when I'm doing something professional. And let me show you what this looks like. So if I make the PDF, all right, so here's the PDF. That is a little thing. Let's make it a little bigger here. Okay. So this is what I was saying, that it makes this weird table. I hadn't actually run the other one. There's something that's happening different when I don't do knitter ... table. So it looks better in that example. In this example, it looks just awful. And then here is using Xtable. and it creates the table that looks like this. And a nice thing is that once you do that, you can also, if you're using LaTeX, you can make things in landscape. So doesn't really make much sense here with this teeny table, but you can see the paper is landscape, and that is important if you're doing really wide tables. All right, so now I'm going to switch gears and let me first answer a question I have here. Someone says, do you have trouble with Cable and Cable Extra with Word? Cable Extra I have not gotten to work with Word. I just have to use Cable, and it does drive me a bit nuts. I don't like the way my tables work in Word. I haven't figured out how to solve that. And then it's just Cable Extra. It's just, I haven't had any luck at all with Word. I hope they fix that. Okay. So let's go back over to the website. So head back over here. And now, I'll answer one more question before I move onward. Someone says, what is the advantage over just customizing Word tables? Okay, so remember that the nice thing about R is you are not going in there and constantly manually updating your tables, right? As soon as the data changes or you decide to change your analysis, you want all the tables to just update when you get knit and you rerun everything. So if you're customizing the Word manually, then like every time you have to update that that report, that paper, document, you're going back in there and manually doing that R. It's very slow. So if you can figure out how to get the right customized look without having to do it manually, you save yourself a lot of time. Okay, so I want to jump to two other topics quickly. Accessibility, read about this. It makes it pretty easy. I mean, in RStudio, it's pretty easy. Adding the alt text is easy using the caption feature. And then I put a link to some other tips on accessibility here. Now I want to jump to more uses of our Markdown that you might not have thought about. One really nice feature of websites. So this website that I'm showing right now is built off our Markdown files, and it is dead simple, very simple. I have a little tutorial there. You can clone that repository right here, and when you have cloned that, what you're going to see is, let's see, okay. Right now, so I just switched over to, you can see up in the corner what project I'm on. This is the website. And you can see here, when I click build, it has build website. So every time I'm making a change to my material, added a carriage return, which is not going to do anything, but I could, hit build website, and boom, it's going to rebuild all the material. And then I'm going to go, I use GitHub Desktop. I'm going to go here, boom, and I can update I just push those changes up to GitHub, and it shows it live for you. I've actually, when I'm teaching sometimes, you're putting things, putting notes up for students. I'm actually editing the websites and putting the notes up for them while I'm speaking, updating my website. Okay, so that's nice. Look at that tutorial if that's something you're interested in. Another super easy thing to do is actually create online books. So I'm going to click here. This book, Applied Time Series Analysis for Fisheries. This is something that myself, Mark Sherrill, and Eric Ward have written. This is built off our Markdown files. And dead simple. It's just each chapter here is an R Markdown file. We have this special file that's called, it's a YAML file that tells you the order you want those, and it just makes it, all of this stuff, just makes it. All I did was put the content in there. So that is super easy. Okay. Okay, so I'll answer that, the last question there a bit. I want to see a couple more examples. And then the last thing I want to show you is that another thing that you can do it's R Markdown. Our Markdown file is make a spiffy landing page or package. So here's the spiffy landing page. And all this like stuff you see here, it looks really nice. I didn't code that. All I did was added the text here. And then you see how this code shows up. Those are just those little tick marks that say that this is code. All this is done automatically for me. All I have to do is think about the content. And the content that I create is just an R Markdown file. It's actually a Markdown file. It's not going to process the R. If I have R in there, I'm going to use the R and create a Markdown file, output to a Markdown, and then I post the README file on GitHub and tell GitHub to show this page. So it's great. So it really makes it really easy to make slick ways to share your products and make landing pages for your products. Okay. Now, last thing to note here is I have a section here that talks about figure and table numbering. Once you get into writing papers with R Markdown, you run into this really annoying feature of it can be hard to automatically number figures and tables. If you're making books, the Bookdown package does that. Read about that in that tutorial I listed here. That automates it, but if you're just using plain R Markdown, it's not automatic. So it's a bit of a hassle, and I show a solution here that I use. All right, so I'm into the hour. Now I'm going to switch to answering questions, and come back here to this R Markdown thing, and I'll add the paper examples. Okay, so if you build sites in R Markdown, how difficult is it to share drafts? Okay, so okay, so that gets back to like how GitHub is approved for NOAA, and that GitHub is approved for our public products. So all the things that I have on there, they're for the public. Nothing sensitive, no sensitive code or anything like that. And the and the platform is approved. If you go on to setup, I have the links to the files. There's a process you need to go through for approval, and the approval that you need for your content is it's related to like your code content, and you know that it's approved from your supervisor to post that that product. So it doesn't go through like the web, kind of the whole web approval. It's not like a website. Like this is like it's the material, the content that you're sharing. So like, let me show you here. My repositories. I'll just show you the navigating to the that Mars package. This is, oh wow, oh, there it is, yeah. So this is my biggest R package. I have this up on CRAN. This is for multivariate autoregressive state space modeling. So that web page that you see, that landing page, is just written off this README here. So it's not really a web page. It's just like you're displaying your information differently. And somebody noted this is supposed to be Mars. I hope it's Mars. It's not supposed to be Jupiter. So that would be my answer to that thing. And then, does GitHub serve as a web hosting service? Yes, plenty of people use it as a web hosting service, definitely. You can use it that way. You'll find lots of examples on that. If you look on the Rverse tutorials in the repositories there, I show a repository of how to create a blog on GitHub. Oftentimes, like if you see a blog and if somebody's kind of techie, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see if they're hosting it on GitHub. And let's see, thanks for the person who posted the Captioner package. I have not used that. I will look into that. And let's see. All right. Okay, fantastic. I think I've gotten through all the questions. If there are any other questions, go ahead, put that on there. And oh, I wanted to share one resource with you. So I put this up on the website. It's right up near the beginning. I'll copy it and put this in there also. It's our Markdown for Scientists. This is based on a workshop that Nicholas Tierney did. And this is going to teach you a lot about our Markdown. So if you listen to what I was talking about and you're like, wow, this is great, I want to do more. The next step I would say is go through the material in this workshop, get you right up to speed, and making your own articles quickly. Oh, last thing that I didn't mention is another nice thing about our Markdown, and a reason that I'll often do my analyses in that, even if I'm like sandboxing, I'm not like actually creating a report, is that when you run our Markdown, it does it in a clean environment. Remember last week I was saying that you get all kinds of errors because you'll forget that you have something defined in your environment and you're inadvertently using it. So if you have alpha in your analysis and you forgot to use the new alpha and everything's working, you didn't notice that you'd forgotten to redefine alpha, but it's working because you have alpha in your environment. And that's a bug. You didn't want that. It was the wrong one. If you do everything in our Markdown document, it's going to create a clean, empty environment. And then when you run it, it'll say, hey, alpha does not exist. You're like, ah, that's not right. And then you'll realize, oh, no, I had it in my environment. So that's why I often use that. And then another reason is just it's so much easier to put all the notes in there. And it makes it so much easier to come back later and figure out what on earth you've been doing. Okay, great. Let me see. We're good? Okay, so next week, we'll switch gears again, and I'll talk about our packages. And I would encourage you to attend that one, even if you think, oh, I'm not going to be creating our packages. Why would I do that? I use our packages all the time for my own personal work. It will really help you develop a better code and more documented code. So come listen to that. It's really super easy to make an R package. It's way, way easier than you think if you've never done it before. In fact, by the end of the session, you'll have your own little R package going. Okay, great. Feel free to email me if you have questions or problems. Otherwise, have a great weekend, everyone.